What a shocker, surprise. When we first made the announcement back a couple months ago, and it came out via email, I noticed that there were two players or two inductees that had black and white photos, and everybody else had color. So it kind of dated us, but there was indeed color film back in the 70s. So I talked to Gary about that earlier. So some of my friends joked that it took 30 years for me to get the phone call, which came at 10:39 p.m. one evening from one Walter Abercrombie. And when your phone lights up at 10:39 at night, you're in bed, at least I am nowadays. You look at it, and I saw the area code 254, but for some reason Walter, who I had programmed in my phone, didn't show up. So I said, this can't be good news. And my in-laws are from Waco. So I was nervous, but as soon as I heard his voice on the other end of the line, and he began to talk, small talk, he didn't tell me anything right off the bat, but it put my mind at ease, but it was still a big shocker that he said that I'd been chosen to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. So I've got me some notes, because if I don't stick to these, it'll be all over the place. And I know we're trying to get on down the road, but the other night I did get a phone call from Mac Rhodes, our athletic director, who we had some small talk, and I talked about, Mac, I don't think there's any way I can possibly thank all the people that helped put me in this position in 3 minutes. 5 minutes? No. So I started writing, and I started writing this the day after Walter told me that I was going to be inducted. And the first time I went through it, it was 12 minutes long. And I said, I got a lot of cutting out to do, but I just couldn't cut all of the people that touched my life. I guess I'm going to have to lighten it up a little bit. RG3's not here tonight, one of my heroes. So I said, well, it's representing the football program, I'll be DF2, all right? It's not RG3, and he's got a Heisman Trophy, and the only trophy I got that was, I was on the 1980 university champ, all university intramural bowling team. And one of my teammates is back over here. He came in from Oklahoma, and that's the only trophy I got, and it's about this tall. But no, I'm up here first and foremost because of my parents and my family. They were all very instrumental in raising me in a manner that prepared me for this, to compete first in life. And sports was a big part of our family, no doubt about it. My father was a Rice Owl on the 1953 Southwest Conference Championship team. He was a freshman that year. My mother ran against the great Olympian Wilma Rudolph in a track meet one time. So they were big competitors, and as a young boy, I grew up real sheltered in the hill country down between Burnett and Lampasas, outside of a little community that there is no red light, called Lake Victor, Texas, and there is no lake. But I led a sheltered life, and it wasn't until 1976 when I was invited to come up and watch Baylor play, and the homecoming game that year was against Arkansas. And I don't know if any of you guys were there for that 1976 Arkansas-Baylor game. It was the year that Baylor went 7-3-1 and didn't make the bowl. But that was the most physical, and Mike Sims might remember, they were carrying players off left and right. And I went home that evening and said, that is the defense that I want to play for. And so it was a very nasty recruiting, and for a 2A high schooler to get involved in this, and the Longhorns are coming after you big and hard. You got the Aggies over here. You got this was the first year that the Houston Cougars won the conference, and it was tough for an 18-year-old little hill country boy that lived on a ranch 13 miles from the nearest town. But there was a great man that didn't give up on me, and that was Coach Cotton Davidson. He's the reason that I became a Baylor Bear, because I let all of the facilities that all the other schools had. I didn't come to Baylor because of the facilities, I can tell you that. I can remember coming into the weight room there under the stadium, and there seriously were 2 5-gallon paint cans with a piece of pipe stuck in them. And those were the barbells. But Coach Davidson, he was just about at every basketball game I played my senior year, and I chose Baylor, number one for the superior education, number two for the proximity to our family ranch and friends in Burnett, and probably more so than anything, and Coach Davidson helped me, we talked about this, and that was to play against the blue bloods of college football in the 70s. That we were going to play at Nebraska, at Georgia, between the hedges. We were at Ohio State in the Horseshoe. We were at Kentucky. We were at West Point. The hallowed West Point, being there and looking down the Hudson River, it was unbelievable. And at Alabama, which was not a very good experience. But I wanted to play against the best, and Cotton Davidson helped me see beyond the window dressing that the other schools were putting up. He helped me see what I could be at Baylor and what Baylor could be with me. Right behind him, I'll briefly mention, I'll get picked up here, Walter. Behind Cotton Davidson was Corky Nelson, my linebacker coach. Corky was responsible for 5 or 6 of the men that are currently on this Hall of Fame. And Corky was tough. He was old school. There's a couple of linebackers I see out here that have been through the gauntlet, we called it, with him. He could empty Baylor Stadium as fast as Baylor Stadium would fill up. And practices would sometimes stop because of what was going on down where the linebackers were warming up. If you could get through the first 15 minutes of warm-ups, practice was easy. But Corky was old school. And I remember Dr. Herb Reynolds came in one day with a bunch of the Board of Regents, and they were all dressed in their suits. Even one of them had a cane, just a real dapper guy. And they all sat down up there just coming out of the little walkout deal there. And about that time, we have a motivational moment down in our end of the field with Coach Davidson. And we all went, it was Doak Field Day, it was Paul Hurst Day. He picked out somebody every day to toughen us up, and boy, did he ever. But he unloaded, and I can tell you that those regents hadn't even sat down for 1 minute, and they all got out and filed out. They left the stadium. If they didn't, they made the first mistake. They just should have called to find out about practice and to tell them that they were coming. But I don't think that would have probably made Corky even more tough. And then, of course, I have to mention Coach Taft for leading and motivating all of us. He challenged me to come to Waco and to be a part of a program that was going to, in 4 years, he said, if you'll leave here in 4 years and help us put this program at the top of the Southwest Conference, I will be much appreciated. And it happened. We did that. We ended up being the first 10-win team in Baylor history. If there wouldn't have been a little team called San Jose State, we might have played somebody other than Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. We might have been national champs that year. We were that close. But it was Coach Taft, and he himself, he had a way of motivating. One day in spring training, probably the same year, he gets mad at our goal line defense. He comes over and chews them out, and I was in the huddle too, but Coach Taft didn't chew you out real hard. But he pushes the guy that wasn't doing practice right, turns his cap around, and lines up in a 1953 stance down on the goal line and says, come on, boys, come at him. And sure enough, he did. And he makes the tackle, knocks his guy back and makes the tackle. But in so doing, he had blood just pouring down his nose. But he made his point, and that's the kind of leader he was. After the dust settled, he had made it, but he had a bloody nose. But these mentors, my parents, Coach Davidson, Corky Nelson, Grant Taft, they were all very instrumental in my development. But I want to say this, that I accept this award on behalf of all of my teammates. 1977, 78, 79, 80. It's a 79 Peach Bowl, a 1980 Southwest Conference champ team, a 1978 team that I thought had more talent than any team that I played on at Baylor. but we went 3-8. We only beat Texas. We only beat A&M, and we got beat by Rice, but fortunately we beat TCU, which we'll do tomorrow. 17 of my teammates and 4 trainers and coaches are already here in the Hall of Fame. 33 of my teammates went on to play the NFL. I saw 1 or 2 out here already tonight. With those kind of guys surrounding you, how could it not, some of it, rub off on me? I have to mention my Baylor brothers that I reconnected with while playing in the NFL and the USFL. I was a short four-year guy in and out. But manager Keith Spanky Crawford, who's out here somewhere, I saw him early, he's back here. He stuck with me, and he was like a brother to me. And he was Corky's manager, and he was sometimes he was mean as Corky was. Trainer Lynn Glass, who I know can't be here tonight, and my USFL teammate and Baylor brother Andrew Mellentree, who was inducted into this Hall of Fame just last year. But I also want to just mention real quickly, I owe a lot to my Baylor student body friends. I immersed myself into campus life as much as life away from Baylor Stadium would allow me, which wasn't much, but I was fortunate to join a fraternity, and after a couple of years, ran for and was elected president. And I value that just about as much as I did when I was one of our 1980 tri-captains on the Southwest Conference Championship team. These men were real fans then, and they remain green and gold to the core today. They and many of my fraternity brothers and student body friends helped open up an entirely different side of Baylor to me that I had no idea was out there, because my world was Brooks Hall, out to the stadium and back, pretty much, and go to class, of course. But when you devote that much time to build up a college program to a new pinnacle of achievement, you become passionate and protective. And, and one of the worst things that we went to in 1980, Coach Taft called the tri-captains, myself, Mike Singletary, and Frank Detta into the office and said, due to budget constraints, and we knew this wasn't going to be good, what came after that, we will not have an athletic dining hall in 1980. And we just won the Peach Bowl. So you're thinking, what's going on here? It wasn't budgeted. So you're going to have to eat with the regular students. Well, I thought that was great. We got to eat with girls, But you try to recruit other student athletes to come to Baylor, and when they ask you because all these other schools, I guarantee you, they were planning up how much, you got lobster night over here, you get filet mignon, all this. But what that did, I think, was harden our resolve to win that Southwest Conference that year. We were picked to finish 6th in the conference, and we ended up 6th in the nation during the regular season. And it was a pinnacle, but the true pinnacle for me is that Baylor introduced me to the woman who became my wife. For the past 35 years, we've produced 3 adult kids who have in turn given us 3 grandsons so far, 2 twins that live in Hong Kong. I call them Hongus and Congus because they're just like little middle linebackers, what they are. They're little Mike Singletaries running around over there in Hong Kong. But we've got and my daughter who's here tonight, who lives down in BK, they've got a 1-year-old and another one on the way. So we'll have finally, I think this spring, we'll have a girl in the group, which is going to be good. But by the way, my wife's father, Vernon Cole, was a record-setting quarterback at North Texas, and he played in the Canadian League. And so now I tell my wife, hey, you've got a father that was a Hall of Famer, and now you've got a husband that's a Hall of Famer. So hopefully that'll help me down the road. When it's all said and done, I'm going to wrap up. I'm sorry to run so long, but I believe and I know that God placed me at Baylor University. No doubt about it. When I made the decision to go to Baylor, it went against everything that the people in Burnett County that followed my career, and went against, I guess you call it conventional wisdom. A lot of people use that, but it shocked many people around Burnett. And I can remember the first year I came back after the first year, my freshman year, which I ended up starting a couple of games at the end of the year. Everybody was razzing me because the Aggies had beat us. The '1 Longhorns with Earl Campbell had beat us. Earl had put some cleat marks in my chest, which I'm very proud of. But as a young man, it took me it took me some time to fully realize how that bold decision to become a Baylor Bear was divinely influenced, I believe. Time will not permit me to mention all those who influenced my Baylor career by name tonight. I proudly carry a piece of them with me. I humbly and proudly accept and share this gracious Hall of Fame recognition with my parents, my family, my teammates, my coaches, hundreds of Baylor students and friends who opened that door, that other door to Baylor University. I thank you all from the bottom of my green and gold heart, and thank you, Baylor University, for allowing me to become a Baylor Bear. Thank you.